In the late 1950s, Britain was still rebuilding its confidence after the hardships of war. Rationing had only recently ended. Cities were recovering. Families were beginning to dream again. And on roads still filled with modest little saloons and practical utility cars, one machine suddenly appeared that looked like it had arrived from another world. The Vauxhall Victor did not look like a typical British family car. It carried sweeping American-inspired lines, chrome trim, panoramic styling, and a bold confidence that Britain rarely saw in ordinary motoring. To many people, it looked less like transportation and more like a glimpse into the future. But behind that glamorous image was a deeper story. A story of ambition, pressure, changing cultures, and a British company trying desperately to modernize before it was left behind forever. When the Victor first appeared in 1957, it created genuine shock across Britain. At a time when most family cars remained conservative and restrained, the Victor arrived with tailfin influences, wraparound glass, bright detailing, and proportions clearly inspired by American styling trends. Some people loved it instantly. Others thought it looked excessive for British roads. Yet nobody ignored it. For Vauxhall, that reaction mattered enormously. The company needed attention. It needed identity. And most importantly, it needed survival. To understand why the Victor looked like an American dream, it is important to understand Britain itself during the 1950s. The country was slowly recovering economically, but emotionally there was still exhaustion from the Second World War. For years, British buyers had accepted practicality over excitement. Cars were expected to be reliable, economical, and restrained. But by the middle of the decade, a new mood was emerging. Television ownership was growing. Consumer culture was expanding. Young families wanted signs of progress and optimism. America represented confidence, abundance, and modernity. American cars looked glamorous in films and magazines. They symbolized prosperity in a way many British vehicles simply did not. Vauxhall understood this change better than many of its competitors. Since the 1920s, the company had been owned by General Motors, which meant Vauxhall had access to American styling influence long before most British manufacturers. While companies like Austin and Morris often remained conservative in appearance, Vauxhall designers could study trends coming directly from Detroit. That influence became unmistakable with the Victor. The Victor replaced the aging Wyvern model, and the difference between the two cars felt dramatic. The older British shape suddenly looked old-fashioned overnight. The Victor featured sweeping sidelines, decorative chrome, and styling touches inspired by American cars such as Chevrolet sedans of the same era. Yet the car remained physically smaller and more practical for British roads. That balance became one of its biggest strengths. It gave ordinary British families the feeling of owning something glamorous without the enormous fuel bills or impossible dimensions of a real American car. At launch, the Victor was marketed as modern, stylish, and forward-thinking. Vauxhall advertisements proudly highlighted the car's American-inspired appearance. Dealers displayed the car with confidence because it attracted attention naturally. Showrooms suddenly felt exciting. Customers who had previously viewed family saloons as dull necessities now saw something aspirational. For many households, buying a Victor felt like moving into a brighter post-war future. But the Victor was not merely about appearance. Underneath the styling, Vauxhall engineers worked carefully to modernize the driving experience while keeping costs manageable. The car used a unitary body structure, which helped reduce weight and improve interior space. This was still relatively modern engineering for British mass-market cars during the period. The Victor also featured independent front suspension and rack and pinion steering, giving it respectable handling characteristics for its class. It was not a sports car, but it drove with more refinement than many buyers expected. Its engine was modest by American standards, yet entirely suitable for British roads. The early Victor used a 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine producing around 55 horsepower. That number may sound small today, but in the late 1950s it was acceptable for a medium-sized family saloon. More importantly, the Victor delivered reasonable fuel economy while maintaining smooth cruising ability for long-distance journeys. Britain's motorway network was still in its infancy, but families increasingly dreamed of holidays, seaside trips, and national mobility. Cars like the Victor helped define that new lifestyle. One of the most remarkable things about the Victor was how carefully it balanced aspiration with affordability. Real American cars were rare in Britain because they were expensive to import, difficult to maintain, and often too large for local conditions. The Victor solved that problem psychologically. It gave buyers the emotional experience of American motoring while remaining practical enough for ordinary life. That was the genius of the car. It was not trying to become an American automobile. It was trying to make British drivers feel closer to the optimism America represented. The Victor's interior reinforced this image. Bright trim, stylish dashboards, and generous glass areas made the cabin feel airy and modern. Compared with some darker, more conservative British interiors of the time, the Victor felt cheerful and contemporary. Families noticed these details immediately. Children enjoyed the large windows. Drivers appreciated the visibility. Owners often spoke proudly about the car's appearance outside restaurants, cinemas, and suburban homes. Interestingly, the Victor also reflected broader global automotive trends during the 1950s. Across Europe, manufacturers increasingly borrowed visual ideas from America because the United States dominated popular culture and industrial confidence. Tailfins, chrome trim, panoramic windshields, and sweeping lines appeared on many international vehicles. Yet Britain adopted these trends cautiously. The Victor became one of the clearest examples of that influence entering mainstream British motoring. The car's defining moments often came not from racing victories or celebrity ownership, but from everyday endurance. Victor survived endless commutes, harsh winters, overloaded holiday journeys, and difficult British roads. Mechanics across the country became familiar with their strengths and weaknesses. Owners developed loyal relationships with them despite the flaws. Many people remember the Victor not because it was perfect, but because it felt alive with personality. Even today, surviving examples create powerful nostalgia among enthusiasts. Seeing a restored Victor instantly transports many older viewers back to a different Britain. A Britain of expanding suburbs, black and white television, local dealerships, Sunday drives, and post-war optimism. The car captures an emotional atmosphere as much as a mechanical one. Unfortunately, time was not kind to most Victors. Rust destroyed huge numbers of them. Because they were affordable family cars rather than prestigious collectibles, many were simply discarded once repair costs became impractical. During the 1970s and 1980s, countless Victors disappeared quietly from roads and scrapyards alike. This disappearance increased the emotional power of surviving cars because they now represent memories as much as machines. And perhaps that is why the car continues to matter. It tells a story larger than itself. A story about aspiration, identity, recovery, and belief in progress. It was not merely a family saloon with chrome trim. It was Britain imagining a different future for itself. If you enjoy stories about forgotten automotive legends like the Vauxhall Victor and the machines that quietly shaped generations of drivers and families, consider subscribing to continue exploring the history behind the world's most memorable classic cars.